What do you think about we could term manipulation or the corruption in the DNC that perhaps tipped the scales against Bernie in the election? Do you think there was
In
such a thing?
2016 or 2020?
Both, I would say. In different, the dynamics there were different with Hillary Clinton and like the pressure from Hillary Clinton as a candidate and so on. Yeah, what was there? Why didn't Bernie win? I guess is one way to ask.
Okay. I think there's a couple things here. First, the DNC, I'm not a Democrat, just your audience may not know. I'm just a independent.
Yeah.
I mostly vote for candidates that end up being Democrats. In local elections, often there's no party designation. So, okay, I'm obviously on the left. I'm not denying that. But the Democratic Party as an institution has never really been interesting to me.
You're still a rebel that resists belonging to any institution.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And whether it matters, I don't know. The DNC and the RNC really are organizations that to some degree exist to justify their own existence, because if they were no longer necessary, they would go away. And so they have to assert their value and their importance. They do this in a number of different ways, organizing the way that the nominee is chosen, the convention, working with states on everything from redistricting to whatever else the case may be, setting the order of primaries and having some involvement in how that's all going to happen, and also coordinating behind the scenes. I guess they would describe it as making sure our candidates don't get in each other's ways. Mm-hmm. We might see it and say they're picking the winner. There's nothing illegal about them being involved in picking the winner, but we might say it's not in people's interests. I think the 2020 primary was really interesting. Bernie supporter, myself, I started telling my audience after a couple primaries and even before, based on polling and different things, I see a real uphill battle here for Bernie. And it's really important. People in my audience are not the average, union worker in Michigan who is mostly working and raising a family and then goes to vote on primary day and goes to vote on election day. If you spend a lot of time on Reddit and Twitter, you're going to have an inflated sense of Bernie's popularity within the Democratic Party. That was my sense. And to some degree, we saw that in certain states. I don't have the exact primary order and results in front of me or in my head, but the big turning point was South Carolina. South Carolina was when Joe Biden won and won handily, understood to be because of the larger African-American population in South Carolina. And right around that exact same time, I actually don't remember now whether it was the day after or the day before, some of the smaller Democratic candidates, smaller in terms of support, got out and said, I'm endorsing Joe Biden. And to some degree, of course, it was all organized and timed to help Joe Biden. There's no doubt about that. This is what the DNC does. It's hard for me to be mad at the DNC because this is sort of like, if we believed they were there to be unbiased arbiters and to stay as much on the side as possible, it would make sense to be furious that they've gone against their stated, kind of mandate. But we know that the DNC negotiates and is working behind the scenes and has a favorite. That favorite was Hillary in 2016, 2020. So I share the frustration about the power that the DNC has, but for people who were saying they did something illegal or whatever else the case may be, that doesn't seem to be the case. But this is part of why, I would love there not to be this duopoly of Republicans and Democrats. And there's probably 4 major changes that have to happen in order to make that a reality. But I share the frustration of folks while recognizing that Reddit was not accurately representing Bernie's level of popularity.
Still, I wish that the bias wasn't towards the, what could be negatively termed the deep state, towards the bureaucracy, towards the momentum of the past, which I think Joe Biden kind of represents, versus new ideas. Which is funny to say that Bernie Sanders somehow represents new ideas because he's also an older gentleman.
Well, it's a lot of framing. And the other aspect to that is, on paper, Joe Biden's platform was arguably the most progressive of any Democratic candidate who won the nomination. Now, of course, there were people who challenged the nominations who were to Joe Biden's left. A lot of this is perspective, and it that's how you end up saying the guy who's a couple years older than Biden is actually the guy with the fresh perspective, which is interesting because I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, and you also have to say the perspective doesn't always align with the policies. You're right, and the actual policies of Joe Biden are different than maybe the perception of Joe Biden
or what he ran on. I mean, just two examples I would give are during his campaign, he played up a little bit his interest in doing student loan forgiveness and something on cannabis. I never bought it. I told my audience, I think he's saying this stuff because this is the way the tide is kind of, the wind is blowing and he's being advised to say this stuff. I don't think he's going to do very much on either of these things. He did actually do some student loan stuff, but that would be two examples, I think.